What is up? Welcome into today's episode of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We have a great Week 9 slate on tap for you guys. Going to be breaking down the biggest matchups in the weekend. But first, before we get to that, we're going to, as we always do, give some bold predictions heading into the weekend. I'm going to cheat a little, and I can see the bold predictions on the screen here right in front of me. So that's why I want to start with BMAC's bold prediction, because I love where his head is at this week.
No question, one of the bigger stories in the National Football League from a week ago. The Cleveland Browns, yes, some positivity associated with that organization, primarily because of the new quarterback in Jameis Winston. So my bold prediction is Jameis once again will throw for at least 300 yards against a very, very stout defensive unit in the Los Angeles Chargers. And get this, guys, he will also lead the Cleveland Browns to another victory. At home, the stadium is going to be filled to capacity. They want to see number 5 give his pregame speech. They want to see number 5 get guys fired up on the sideline. The morale is totally in a different direction. And this is my bold prediction. Jameis will throw at the bare minimum 300 yards, but most importantly, he's going to be 2-0 as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns by Sunday night.
B-Mac, without a doubt, they got that move right. Jameis Winston rolls right in there, and they get a shot in the arm. Everybody seems to be playing a little bit different. Obviously, going down the field, that's great. I've got a bold prediction, too, that involves going down the field. I think if we see Jordan Love out there for the Green Bay Packers, it's going to be the questions about Detroit is how do we get home on Jordan Love? How can we generate pass rush without our guy Aiden Hutchinson? Well, I think the plan is this. We're going to flip the whole scheme on its head. We're going to drop a bunch of guys into coverage, similar to what we saw against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs when they kept taking the tops off of defenses. We've seen Green Bay do this before. I think Aaron Glenn puts his guys in great position on the second level to be able to turn the ball over twice. That's Jordan Love, 2 interceptions to Brian Branch. That's what I think. And the Lions win this one, Mike. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for the Lions this weekend.
You see, Kyle, this is why I want to start with BMAC. This is why I want to start with BMAC.
But Mike, before you get on Kyle for that foolishness, I would like to say something. I actually have Jordan Love on my fantasy team, and I don't need that to happen, Kyle. Usually I root for bold predictions, but I'm already in the dumps right now because Jordan Love has been injured more than healthy, and I'm fighting for my life. So hopefully Jordan Love does not receive that energy from Kyle. It's your show, Mike. You got it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything bad about Brian Branch. I think he's playing elite level football. That was one of my favorite picks last year. He was one of the Rookie of the Year candidates on the defense side of the football. He's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate the way he's playing this year. But I don't see it happening. I don't think if Jordan Love plays, that's a big if at this point, and we'll get to that matchup because there's some great matchups in that game a little bit later. If he plays, I think Jordan Love's going to play a conservative brand of football. I think they're going to run the ball a lot in that game. If he does play, try to protect him in that groin. But the guy who scares me isn't really Brian Branch. It's Kirby Joseph, because Kirby Joseph takes some chances on the back end. He can make a pick when you didn't think he was going to be there because he freelances a little bit. That's why he has 5 picks on the year. But also he can be susceptible on the back end. So that's the guy I'm looking at, too. If he has a big game, I don't think the Packers beat the Lions. But if he doesn't have a big game, if he busts a few coverages, I think the Packers could take that one home. My bold prediction, and this one's bold because I think it's the biggest line of the entire weekend. I think the Broncos have a legit chance to beat the Baltimore Ravens. I know this juggernaut offensively that they have is special. It's probably the best offense in the NFL. I'm not breaking any ground saying that. But this might be the best defense in the NFL that they're facing in the Denver Broncos. Both of these teams are 5-3. You know, the Ravens, for as good as everyone thinks they are, and truly I think they're a special team, they are beatable for a reason. They've lost 3 games for a reason. 1 to the Raiders, 1 to the Cleveland Browns. These are not elite level football teams. So a 9.5 line to me is just disrespectful to Denver and what they've been doing of late and what Bo Nix has been doing. And it's playing complementary football. He has the lowest turnover-worthy play rate in the NFL since week 3, according to PFF. Only 1 pick over his last 6 games. This guy's playing a kind of football that you can win with when you have the defense that they do. And oh, by the way, the Ravens still down 2 corners, still down Marlon Humphrey, still down Nate Wiggins. If those guys don't play, the Broncos beat the Ravens.
Yeah, I think there's going to be so much on the plate of Bo Nix because Sean Payton obviously is going to be overemphasizing the fact that we don't want to give extra possessions to the Baltimore Ravens and that juggernaut of an offense. So we're going to try not to turn the ball over. I look for the Broncos to rely heavily on that run game early on and lean on their defense. So you talked about it's a mighty group over there in Denver. They know how to play the defensive side of the football. But I think that'll open some stuff on the back end for Bo Nix as this game goes along. You talked about the injuries in the secondary for Baltimore. Look for Bo Nix to say, hey, I can dink and dunk, but I'm also going to try to take some shots. I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Payton slipped in some of those explosives as the game went along, Mike.
You know what, Mike? I actually was looking at that game as well when I was trying to figure out which direction I was going to go for this segment with the bold prediction segment. And the thing about this game, I agree with you as well. But the thing about this game is kind of giving week 2 vibes, right? Remember week 1, Baltimore, close game, lost to Kansas City. And then they ended up getting, I think it was the Raiders, week 2, if I'm not mistaken. Week 2, and I think they were fake. Yeah, they were favored like 8 or 9 points. And then, of course, the Raiders found a way to scrap and claw. They won that ball game. So I see 2 things happening in this matchup between the Broncos and the Ravens. I see either Denver winning this ball game or they're getting blown out. I don't see anything in between. And I think either or could happen, but I would not be surprised, to your point, when you look at how well Sean Payton is calling the offense with Bo Nix. Those 2 individuals have figured each other out, which is a great thing. And defensively, that's a very, very opportunistic, sticky group on all 3 levels. So this could be a really, really intriguing matchup that could work in the favor of the Broncos.
I at least think the line is a little too high. I want to circle back, though, back to your prediction, because this Browns team with Jameis versus before, and Kyle touched on this, it's not just that the offense looked better. Right? They just had more life as a unit, whether it's the offensive line, played probably one of their best games of the season, this defensive front making a stop when it mattered most. Do we see this Browns team as having a legit chance to get back into this? They beat the, say your bold prediction lives up to the hype. They beat the Chargers this week. They're 3-6 when the wild card in the AFC right now is just at 500 or just over 500 at 4-3, the Los Angeles Chargers. They would be at 500 then because obviously they'd have beaten the Chargers. So at 3-6, can they get back into this with Jameis Winston, B-Mac?
Yeah, no question, because this is still a talented roster. Remember, the majority of this roster is still together from what we saw last season in a successful run. I know you don't have Amari Cooper, but the majority, the bulk is still there. And Nick Chubb will be more acclimated to the offense, being more in football shape. He just returned to action, and you're starting to see a few glimpses of his production. Most importantly, he's healthy. But they have talent. It wasn't like this team didn't have any talent. They were dealing with injuries on the offensive line as well, as you stated. Now they're getting healthier. And most importantly, the morale of the team has changed. There's something about Jameis where guys gravitate towards him. Every stop he's been a likable individual. He's been highly respected. And they go to war for Jameis. And that's what we saw last week. And think about this, Kyle. Think about how many teams you've been a part of. How many times have you been a part of a team, Kyle, or just seen from the outside looking in? The backup quarterback is the guy who gives the speech before we go to battle. You don't usually see that, but that's been his role since being in Cleveland. Yeah, so that tells you how much respect they have for him, and I wasn't surprised to see the success that he instantly gave them when he jumped into the lineup.
And sometimes you see these guys that give these pregame speeches, these rah-rah speeches, and some of us roll our eyes at speech guys. But the thing I love about Jameis Winston is that comes from his heart. When you see him in the tunnel giving his pregame thoughts, this is a guy that's not only talking to his peers, but he's trying to convince himself to go out there and play possess. And the thing that's awesome is even his speeches, which are great and motivated by his truth and you know what he's trying to get accomplished, it's not perfect. It's just like his style of play. You know that he'll give you a chance, and there's still going to be those plays that have you scratching your head. But at the end of the day, it's a guy who's going out there and laying it out on the line for your team. And that's why you see this Browns team playing so much better.
And even if they don't turn this around, he's making our jobs easier because the man is a content machine. His quote this week, did you see it when he said, "You can't say the sky's the limit when people have gone to the moon"? I mean, yeah, Jameis, truly a one of one. All right, we're going to get to some of these matchups, some big games over the weekend. We're going to preview Dallas and Atlanta, Detroit and Green Bay right after this. All right, Dallas traveling to Atlanta to face the Falcons in a game that I personally would describe as a must-win at this point. Dallas comes in 3-4, the wild card in the NFC right now, well above 500 at 5-2. We got the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles both at 5-2. So if they lose this one to Atlanta, who's pretty much in the driver's seat in the NFC South right now, they only have a one-game lead on the Bucs, but they own the tiebreaker there, and the Bucs are reeling with injuries. So this one means a lot more for the Cowboys than it does the Falcons. B-Mac, I want to start with you. What matchups are you looking at in this game, and how do you see it playing out?
But for me, Dallas, I just need to see a complete game for them because to your point, I agree. This is a must win for the Dallas Cowboys because you cannot afford to be 3-5 after this matchup. This is solely about the Dallas Cowboys. But can we see a complete game from the Cowboys? When you look at what they've done in their losses, they get off to slow starts. Last week, a slow start. Then, of course, they try to get things going in the second half, but it was a little too late by then. So can they play better football for 4 quarters on both sides of the football field? Can they run the football? Can they find a way to slow down the ground attack? Because Atlanta has really done a real good job running the football as of late. So for the Dallas Cowboys, at the end of the day, guys, it's about finding a way to win. You have to win this ball game by any means necessary. Because if you lose this ball game if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're 3-5. In the next 3 games, you play Philly, Houston, Washington. Philly, Houston, Washington. You have to win this game because if you go in that 3-game stretch, 3-5, after that 3-game stretch, you might be 3-8. And if that's the case, the season is disco dead.
You know what? This Cowboys team has concerns on both sides of the football, and you talked about having to play a complete game of football. Well, that's all 3 phases. I need to see a huge play on special teams from this group. I need to see Dak Prescott take care of the football throughout the last 3 games, 6 interceptions for Dak Prescott, resulting in 24-plus points for the opposing offenses. So, yes, they haven't been able to stop the run. No, they haven't been able to run the football effectively, and that puts Dak Prescott in this offense behind the 8 ball, trying to find that connection with CeeDee Lamb down the field can result in turnovers. Got to take care of the football. You need to find a way to raise your expectations of yourself in that locker room. If you are one of these players that's been asked to step up and be a big part of this defense, you got to make it happen this week. You guys said it a number of times. A must win, must get off the bus with fangs in your mouth instead of normal teeth. I want to see them take a bite out of this run game, make Kirk Cousins and this offense one-dimensional, and then maybe you got a chance. But Dak Prescott, take care of the football, give her a chance to win a football game.
As a Packers fan, I've seen this story before with Mike McCarthy. I do not see it turning around because when adversity hits in Mike McCarthy's offense, he abandons the running game. And you've seen it on tape this year. The worst rushing offense in the NFL so far this season in terms of yards per game, the Dallas Cowboys, because they get down early and then they just stop running the football. And now they've been particularly good at running the football. That may be part of it, but you have to find more answers there to get balance, because the fact that you haven't been good at running football means that you're putting your offensive line, hanging them out to dry week in and week out, asking them to pass protect in so many obvious pass situations the way they are. You're putting Dak Prescott in bad situations, asking him to win you every single game with his arm. And you're seeing that more often than not, he's going to throw some picks when he's in those situations, especially when you have the pass protection he's had this year up front. Those tackles have just been a massive issue. Now, I will say this. They're going up against one of the worst pass rush and defensive lines. The 4th worst pressure rate of anyone in the NFL this season is the Atlanta Falcons. There's not guys who can win one-on-ones up front there. So if there's any sort of hope for them, it's the fact that maybe this passing game, maybe he'll have time to operate it. But I'm more worried about the other side of the football with the Dallas Cowboys. This defense trying to stop Atlanta's running game. I just don't see it happen. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb played really well against the San Francisco 49ers, and he was really the only shining light that you could look at as a Dallas Cowboy fan and say, hey, I'm proud of that effort. They're going to need him to have a Herculean effort. To your point, that Falcons rush group isn't tops of the league, so you're going to have some time to throw the football. It's going to be a lot of CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott.
All right, let's get to Detroit traveling to Green Bay for what should be the game of the weekend. That is, though, if Jordan Love plays. Big if at this point. He said it's realistic that he can play Sunday, But obviously, it looks like it's going to be one of those game time, test the groin sort of things to see if he does end up playing. Say he does play BMAC. What matchups are you looking for to decide this one?
Well, for me, I'm looking at the same matchups for either side. Jordan Love playing against this very, very feisty secondary for the Lions. You talked about Double B, Brian Branch, and Joseph. Those guys have done a real good job in creating turnovers. Not to mention, look at what Carlton Davis has done as well. He's been a big-time addition for their secondary when you look at providing experience and his ability to follow elite-like wide receivers from the opposing offense. And then when you look at Jared Goff, I mean, he's been unbelievable when you talk about his completion percentage and just how accurate he's been against secondaries. But this secondary that he's going against, Mike, you know better than all of us because you're a faithful cheesehead. This secondary led by Xavier McKinney, and Jair, those guys don't miss opportunities to create interceptions. So which secondary can get the upper hand on the opposing offense quarterback, right? That's what I'm looking forward to because these two units have really done a great job creating turnovers, giving their offense extra possessions. So for me, number one, I want to see Jordan Love in the lineup. I hope he's healthy enough to go because these two teams, I believe, have a legit shot to get to the Super Bowl, either or. So right now for Green Bay, this is a very, very important game because you win this ball game, you state your claim, not just in the NFC North as a top team, but in the entire NFC as one of the best teams as well. So this means a lot. And for Detroit, it's about keeping separation between you and the pack. Not the Packers, but the pack from everyone else in the NFC and, of course, that division. So I'm fired up. I can't wait to go. And like I told you guys earlier, I need a full game from Jordan Love because I'm fighting for my life in fantasy. And, Mike, if you can send a message to Jordan Love and say, listen, shoot it up, take all the pills, whatever it is that you need to go, be ready to go, let's go and have a good game.
Yeah, go in Aaron Rodgers' old stash in the practice facility where they bring the injured players to try stuff out. I'm sure he's got a stash with a couple vials in there that Jordan Love could benefit from dabbling with. But I'll say this, Aaron Glenn has his work cut out for him on the defensive side of the ball. The Packers can beat you a number of different ways, through the air or on the ground. But this Lions defense, they're a tough group against the run. So I fully expect them to pin their ears back and get gully early and often against this Packers run game, which will then lead to Jordan Love being forced to pick apart this defense. I talked about it earlier. Let's drop more guys into coverage, force Jordan Love's hand, force him to make a couple turnovers. That'll keep you in the game. And if you're the Lions, you already have the lead. It could blow the game wide open if you can get a couple turnovers. Who's going to stop the run? Is it the Lions or the Packers, B-Mac? That's the question I have. That's what I'm going to be looking for in the football game.
Yeah, I think the last matchup that we haven't really touched on that I'm going to have eyes on, and it's the one that I think everyone's worried about with the Detroit Lions, is how do they get pressure now? Aiden Hutchinson was a one-man pressure package before his injury. We've seen them do it via blitz the past couple weeks without him. But this Green Bay Packers offensive line has been one of the best units picking up the blitz in the NFL. They're one of the best pass protecting units in the NFL. And Jordan Love at home, when he has that hard count at his disposal, he can diagnose those things pre-snap and where they're going to be coming from. So who's going to win those one-on-ones and get to Jordan Love to make him throw that ball into coverage, to make him throw it early off his back foot and make him put those balls in harm's way that Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch can come down with? I'm not sure they have that guy. So that, to me, if I'm a Lions fan, is this thing that everyone's worried about. And if they don't, if it happens so that, Jordan Love carves him up, he's not under pressure all day long, I think we do see a move before the deadline for the Detroit Lions next week. All right, we're going to do a little bit more.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Yo, Mike, I was about to say that. I was about to say this could be the game that forces Brad Holmes to make a move. Yes, I was really about to say that. I feel like I'm inside your mind right now. I'm in Mike's mind. I see a lot of cheese. What the freak is going on? I literally thinking the same thing to your point because they've been getting by, without Aiden Hutchinson. But this is a game where you're playing against a really, really good quarterback if he's healthy enough to go along with a very, very balanced offense, Josh Jacobs. And they got wide receivers that can go along with a slice of Kraft. He can go as well at the tight end position. You see what I did there? A slice of Kraft cheese. Shouts out to Cheesehead once again. But if they don't put pressure on Jordan Love, because, these two teams can face off in January football as well, playoff time. This could force Brad Holmes to say, you know what? I got to go get a guy I got to go get a guy right now, a legit guy. But then, Mike, if that was to happen, I don't know if that would be good for your cheeseheads, because if they go get a guy like Max Crosby, that might be really intriguing then. I don't know, Mike, if you want that. Y'all might not want to do too well Sunday. If that forces that move, yeah. Yeah.
Just ease off the gas pedal a little. You get a little lead, then maybe start running the ball. Don't really expose their pass rushing woes too much. All right, we're going to get to some other interdivisional rivalries. We got the Dolphins and the Bills previewing right after this. All right, we're going to get to Dolphins Bills in just a second. But first, wanted to tie a bow on this big NFC North matchup, Lions Packers, because there's a very real possibility that Malik Willis does play in this game. But we've seen that already. And the Packers went 2-0 this season when he did play. So, Kyle, do the Packers have a chance if Jordan Love can't play in this game? Or is Malik Willis bound to regress back to the guy we saw in Tennessee?
You know, we think about this Packers team, we think about how well they throw the football. Let's not forget that this is one of the top units in terms of running effectiveness, having a running back who can get it done, having a guy in Matt LaFleur who can scheme things up correctly. I know people always think about smart coaches in the passing game, but really Matt LaFleur is one of the best in terms of installing a dominant running game and putting his guys, whether it's a guard, tackle, or center, in a position to win blocks and have leverage at the second level. With Malik Willis, it makes that job even easier for him as a play caller because, look, a lot of this stuff plays off the run. So we're going to be handing the football off, let our offensive linemen be aggressive. When you got a guy when you got a guy back there like Jordan Love and you're an offensive lineman, you don't sleep quite as well at night because you know you're going to be dropping back into protection a lot throughout the course of the game. A lot of these Malik Willis passes that we've seen are off of the run action, getting him outside and breaking contain. That's an easier ask for an offensive line. So I think against this group, the Detroit Lions, who play the run really well, let's show them run and have Malik Willis get out the back door a couple times. And as you know, there will be opportunities for him to throw the football down the field to somebody uncovered. LaFleur always has that in his bag. Either way, I think it's going to be a really good game, Detroit and Green Bay, whether it's Jordan Love or Malik Willis. But if it is Malik, I fully anticipate this Packers offense to kind of mirror that Detroit offense a little bit. We're going to pound it down your throat until you can stop us.
And I also will say, if Malik's in there, I don't think they're dead. I do think Jordan Love obviously gives you the better chance. But with Aiden Hutchinson out, now this, and obviously Marcus Davenport out too, that was earlier in the season, but this edge group for the Detroit Lions, they're big dudes, whether it's Josh Pascal, whether it's Levi and Wuzurike who's playing out there. These are 280-plus pounders. Can you 280-plus pounders trying to track down Malik Willis consistently? I think that could be an issue for them if he's in the game, is just those guys finding him, because Malik Willis, heck of an athlete. I think that's an aspect to his game that if he is in there, he will run wild on this Detroit Lions team. So I don't think it's the dead, but I obviously think the Lions still the big favorites there if he does play. All right, let's get to that big Buffalo versus Miami game, because Tua's back. They're not dead in the AFC with the way the playoff picture is, but Josh Allen owns this Miami Dolphins team over the course of his career. He's 12-2 against them, 42 touchdowns over the course of his career. You saw it in week 2 in that game that Tua did get injured. Do we expect anything different this time around, Kyle?
Hey, look, this Miami Dolphins team needs a couple of these balls to bounce in a non-Josh Allen way. Yes, he's got one interception on the year, but he's got a couple turnover-worthy throws. And when you take a look at this Miami-Buffalo game from early in the season, obviously it wasn't very pretty with Tua Tagovailoa going out, the turnovers that happened. It ended up being a blowout. Not only Miami, but the National Football League needs this Miami Dolphins offense to go out there and look the part, look like a group that has a brilliant young mind as an offensive coach, looks like they have a quarterback that can process and deliver the football to guys in stride and allow for these yards after catch opportunities, for those freak shows they have at the receiver position. I, more than anyone else, wants this to be a super tight game and an explosive, high-flying affair. But at the end of the day, you and I both know it's going to be the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, that offensive line running at will with James Cook behind him. That's going to be the story of the game. At the end of the day, Josh Allen is part of the class of the NFL at the quarterback position. And it just, doesn't matter who you have at quarterback. I don't care if it's Skylar Thompson, Snoop Huntley, Tua Tagovailoa, or Dan Marino. You're going to have to go play against Josh Allen. I don't think it bodes well for the Dolphins, but I will say this. If they want their season to turn around at all, they're going to need to go and punch the Bills in the mouth, Mike.
I just don't see it happening. Unfortunately, I think this Dolphins offense will be better. I think they will put points on the scoreboard, but I don't see them stopping the Bills. I think the Bills
Can't stop them.
post Amari Cooper trade and what he brought to the table, just basically being one route winner, because they didn't have that before. They didn't have that one guy where it's third down, 3rd and 6, you see man coverage, auto go to him, right? There was no one on that receiving core. Now there is. Amari Cooper is that, and it kind of has this knock-on effect to where, usually you match up your best corner versus best wide receiver. Well, now your best corner is on Amari Cooper, but that now means like Keon Coleman's getting a more favorable matchup. Khalil Shakir is getting a more favorable matchup. These guys can maybe win against the third corner when they weren't winning against the second and first corner. So I do think that this Bills offense is just too much to stop. And Sean McDermott seemingly has Tua and Mike McDaniel's number. Like every single time, it seems like he knows exactly what to do to put a cap on this Dolphins offense. So as much as I want to see Tua out there playing good football, and it was great to see him back last week, it's a buzzsaw this week, unfortunately. This is not the team that I think he gets it done against.
And hey, look, the Miami Dolphins are going to have to take some chances defensively. If they're going to want to try to make this a close game, they're going to have to steal some possessions. I talked about the turnover-worthy plays that haven't come to fruition for the Bills offense. And you and I both know it. Josh Allen's numbers are really good, but it doesn't tell the whole story. If I'm the Dolphins, I'm looking for those tips and overthrows. I'm looking to add some second-level pressure, get in Josh Allen's face early. But even then, even still, Josh Allen is the guy that's 6'6", 260 pounds, that can shrug off a green dog blitzer at the drop of a hat. You better come with a damn good plan, and I would recommend bringing 2 instead of 1, Mike.
So if the Bills win this, the Bills will go to 7-2. Dolphins will drop to 2-6. And say the Patriots lose this weekend as well, and the Jets lose tonight to the Houston Texans. That will mean that they will have a 5-game lead on the division this early on in the season. Could conceivably, by Thanksgiving, have the division in the bag for the Buffalo Bills. Do you run for the 1 seed if you're the Buffalo Bills and you clinch it that early, if you're still behind the Chiefs, or do you kind of take the foot off the gas pedal, maybe don't, put all your tricks out there that you got in the bag and kind of just start to play for your playoff push after clinching the division?
Yeah, I think we could see Mitch Trubisky out there by week 15. You know what I'm saying? Week 14, we could see the Trubisky-led Buffalo Bills. To your point, you're either going to try to make a run at that one spot, hoping that the Kansas City Chiefs are fool's gold, which is what a lot of people have said. Albeit they're undefeated, we still think they have room to lose some games. They've been on a razor's edge. You know who else has been on a razor's edge, though? The Buffalo Bills roster. And we get Amari Cooper back into the lineup. You get guys like Khalil Shakir to step up, and you get production from Dalton Kincaid. But if one of those guys goes down, as you and I both know, that's kind of that house of cards situation. So you want to protect the guys on your roster. That's the reason I didn't have them in the top 5 legit Super Bowl contenders at the beginning of the year. But now they're starting to play like it. They've added some pieces. You get the inexperienced guys stepping up for Josh Allen. But look, I want to protect those guys because we're playing really well right now. We can win with this group here. If we lose any of these guys, I'm not sure we have the same strength. To your point, I think maybe you don't chase the Kansas City Chiefs and you play for that 2 seed.
Some interesting news this week. Sean McDermott said that Matt Milano may actually come back at some point this season. If he does,
huge.
That would be so massive for them in the AFC playoff picture if he's able to go come playoff time. Some other teams that are going to be factoring in the playoff picture in the AFC: Denver Broncos, Baltimore Ravens. We're previewing that game right after this. Denver travels to Baltimore to face the Ravens in a game with massive AFC playoff picture implications. Battle of 2 5-3 teams. We got Bo Nix, Lamar Jackson, the number 1 offense in terms of yards per play in the NFL. No secret who that is. The Baltimore Ravens versus the number one defense in the NFL in terms of yards per play, the Denver Broncos. Cal, what matchups are you looking for to decide this one?
I'm looking for both of these run defenses. I mean, they've got their work carved out for them. Obviously, the Denver Broncos, they're one of the top defenses, if not the top defense in the National Football League. Well, they're going against a future first ballot Hall of Famer, Derrick Henry. Couple that with Lamar Jackson. That defense is going to have a lot to have their eyes on in the backfield at the mesh point. I think about that second level of the defense. I talked about this when the Ravens played the Commander, but those two linebackers in the middle of the field are going to have their eyes going everywhere. When I used to watch like a show like Pokemon, they said, beware, bright lights, flashing lights could cause seizures if you look at it too long. Well, that's kind of like playing the Ravens offense. There's so friggin' much to look at for a defense. So are you able to read your keys the right way, play downhill, and stop this Ravens running attack? And for the Ravens, I mean, they've stopped the run effectively all year, but they know that the Broncos are going to want to try to get into that running rhythm early and often. And then it comes down to stretching the football field for Bo Nix. We've seen him have completions at or around the line of scrimmage, short intermediate routes, middle of the field stuff. I want to see him stretch the field. Take the top off this defense. Show some cards in your hand that you haven't necessarily thrown on the table thus far this season. We've really enjoyed watching Bo Nix take care of the football, work in lockstep with Sean Payton, but I want to see him kind of maybe get the call from the sideline, walk into the huddle and said, screw that, we're going downtown Julie Brown. We're going at this Ravens defense, and we're going to see if they can stop it. I can't wait to watch this game, man. It's, offense versus defense. It's going to be a whole lot of it, Mike.
Yeah, every week there's like one game that I kind of set aside that's like the all 22 that I want to get to first. And this week it is for sure going to be Baltimore's offense versus this Broncos defense, because there's so many great matchups, whether it's, OC versus DC, Todd Monken, the Baltimore Ravens offense coordinator versus Vance Joseph, and what he's done from a blitzing perspective and all he does with those fronts to confuse opposing offensive lines, whether it's those guys on the outside, Riley Moss, Patrick Surtain, for my money, the best cornerback duo in the NFL through the first half of the season against Nelson Aguilar, Rashad Bateman, and now Deontay Johnson, the best separating trio of wide receivers of any team in the NFL. Those guys get open at will. I don't think the Broncos are going to be scared to play man, though. I think they're going to want to disrupt that timing on the outside, but that can be a dangerous game when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson who can extend those plays. So I really have no handle on where it's going to go. I do think that with this Ravens offense and all the answers they have, you can only really contain them. You ain't going to stop them outright. Even when you're correct, sometimes Lamar Jackson makes you wrong. So I do think the Ravens still put up points, but this is a tough matchup for them. I think this is a team that really has answers for a lot of things the Ravens want to do. The one place I'm not sure they have answers, though, are these tight ends. I expect them to get really involved, and I expect them to have a run-heavy game plan going into Denver so that basically Lamar's not getting killed. He was held out of practice with some lingering injuries, nothing serious, obviously, yesterday. But you don't want him to be subject to the pressure that Denver can put on opposing QBs, because they have the most pressures of any defense in the NFL this season. That edge group is lightning rods up and down that roster, whether it's guys like Jonathan Cooper, whether it's guys like Nick Bonito, whether it's guys like Baron Browning. They can track down Lamar Jackson in space. So, again, I'm not going to say one way or the other which way it's going to go. I don't have a handle, but it's going to be awesome football to watch.
Yeah, and usually Lamar Jackson just has the power of him being a superhuman, and he dangles that over his oppositions. But to your point, there's a lot of speed on that Denver defense. And I look at the injury report. It's back / knee for Lamar Jackson. So not only is that back going to be a little bit tight, but it's that knee, the mobility, the ability to get out in space and make plays. That's what Lamar Jackson that's where he's made his hay in the National Football League. He's been a great passer as well, but we all know the superhero effect comes from those legs. If the Denver defense has a really good rush plan, they can cage rush this guy. It'll be interesting to see how he is able to evade that pressure, because you and I both know Vance Joseph is not afraid to rush 7, 8, and drop 3 guys back there in defense. They're confident in man coverage, so it's not like they're hanging a bunch of Jags out to dry on the back end. When you're rushing those 7, you're hoping to come down with the football on the back end from a rush throw.
Yeah, and just on the other side of the football, when Bo Nix is operating with this Denver offense, I do think they will get this passing game on track. I mean, shoot, everyone has against this Baltimore Ravens defense, the worst pass defense in the NFL in terms of yards per game this season. We just saw Jameis and this seemingly inept Cleveland Browns passing game just run roughshod over them, 334 passing yards. And they could still be down Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins. And if that's the case, Bo Nix is going to feel like he's back playing Carolina again with the guys they're throwing out there. And I think he's going to take some deep shots. But it's, do we see the Knicks we've seen of late? Or does a big away game against a guy he just said earlier this week that he grew up idolizing, grew up watching play, and how it's going to be a little surreal for him? Is the moment going to be too big for the rookie? And we're going to see the guy we saw weeks 1 and 2.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun, man. It's there's no better way to measure yourself up than against the two-time MVP. I mean, obviously there's others names out there, Josh Allen's, Joe Burrow's, Patrick Mahomes, but Lamar Jackson, man, come on. And you're talking about the best offense versus the best defense. Can you go be the leader on your side in the Denver clubhouse that puts you over the edge? Can you make some big plays that lets all the pundits, all the media elite, all the Twitter tough guys talking about you the next day? Are they going to be talking about Bo Nix and his rise to dominance from that Denver team? It's going to be a lot of fun, Mike.
And I'll say this with Sean Payton. You know he's got a trick up his sleeve. You know he's going to come out with some trick play, something to try to flip this game on its head. So very exciting. One of my favorite games to watch this weekend. But we got another great game to watch just tonight. Not this weekend. We don't have to wait only more than a few hours here. Texans traveling to the Jets. We're going to preview Thursday Night Football in full right after this. We got a great Thursday night football matchup as the Houston Texans travel to New York to face the Jets. Jets actually favored in this game, despite being the 2-6 team, as the 6-2
we
Texans
need to
come
drug
down.
test the people in Vegas. Okay.
But it's because no Stephon Diggs, obviously no Nico Collins. Stephon Diggs, the ACL tear, he will be out for the season. No Nico Collins. That's been that way for a while. The offense hasn't looked the same without him. He'll hopefully be back when he's first eligible to come off IR in a few weeks here. And this Jets team, their hoping is different with Devontae Adams, even though it hasn't been in the last 2 weeks with him. They may have been marginally better offensively, but it hasn't fixed the fact that they are so worse defensively, giving up 37 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 25 to the inept New England Patriots offense. And now all of a sudden they got CJ Stroud and company coming to town. Kyle, how do we see this one playing out?
Well, hey, look, I mean, CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans will be successful if they can do two things, okay? Two things. This is how simple it is. Give the ball to Joe Mixon more than you think you should, and when you don't give it to him, find a way to prioritize protecting CJ Stroud, because we have seen CJ Stroud have a massive amount of success when he is unabated in the pocket, when he's not getting sacked, and when he's not getting hit when he throws it. But when they do give up sacks for Houston, he's a middle-of-the-road guy in terms of wins and losses. For the New York Jets, you got to take advantage of some of your strengths. Will McDonald's been a guy that's gotten after the quarterback all year long. And when I talked about Joe Mixon's averaging over 100 yards per game when he's in there, okay? And this Jets team is no juggernaut as it pertains to stopping the run. We came in this season, took for granted the fact that Jets team was so good defensively, thought we could just plug in Aaron Rodgers and it would all be sunshine, candy, and rainbows, Mike. But it hasn't been. It has been a depressing, dark cloud over the New York Jets facility since Aaron Rodgers got there last year. He ran out with the American flag. His Achilles blew up. Now it's been a 2-year process in New York. How do you continue that process if you're the Houston Texans? Run the football down their throat. Suck the life out of that stadium with the running game. That's how you can win this football game tonight.
I may need to be drug testing myself because I will be taking the Jets in this one. I just think right now with Houston, how they're put together with, you mentioned the offensive line woes, and I think offensively they've really struggled to handle blitz packages. A lot of just plays with no chance that CJ Stroud has with their offensive line not picking up guys, quite frankly. So against this Jets front that can get after pretty much anyone, and these corners on the outside that are no slouches if they want to just go play man coverage all day long against the likes of guys like John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, Xavier Woods in that receiving core. Robert Woods, excuse me. I think this Jets team.
Yeah, Robert Woods.
I think they win. I think they win this game. And I think this offense finally gets back on track. for the New York Jets, even if Aaron Rodgers is a little bit banged up, because the Texans play one-on-one on the outside. They think they have the corners to do it. I don't think you have the corners to do it against this Jets team. And they have not really altered from that plan much this season. And if they don't alter from that plan against this Jets roster, I think they win this game. I think the Jets move the football and end up winning this game. The Texans just, I know the record says 6-2, but 5 of those are one-score wins. The only team they've really blown out this year are the New England Patriots, and they themselves have been blown out in games, whether it was in that Vikings game early on. So there have been times that this offense has just gone in the tank, and I think this could be one of them when they really face a defense where they're overmatched, especially on that offensive line. We've seen them really, really struggle to move the football, and I think that could be the case against the Jets here.
And it's definitely a crossroads game for both of these quarterbacks. Now, Aaron Rodgers has been at the crossroads every single week. We have crushed this guy because, to be honest, he's been very mediocre, if not less than that. But for CJ Stroud, he needs to go out there and prove that he can win with a cast of characters, not including Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. That's when great quarterbacks really prove themselves, is how much better can I make the guys that are in the room now? And it's John Mechie III, it's Tank Dell coming off an injury. Can you find a way to make those guys be a huge part of the ball game? Me personally, I think if it is going to be a pick I have to make at the receiver position, I think Mechie has a big game. Mechie's not on the list here. We got Dell, Hutchinson, and Robert Woods, but I think John Mechie has a big game. I just woke up with something in my gut telling me about Mechie. So I'm going to listen to the voices in my gut, and I'm going to tell you this. John Mechie, big game. Joe Mixon, huge game.
I'll tell you two guys who need to have a huge game for the Texans to win this one. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, because they should have semi-favorable matchups. Now, Morgan Moses has been back. And when he's been back, him and Tyron Smith, that's a solid enough tackle duo, even if neither of those guys is probably close to their peak performance. They're solid enough that they're not going to be liabilities. But really all it takes is one with Rodgers in his current form and how he's playing. I do worry because you look at the injury reports for Rodgers, and I think it lists every single body part for him at this point. Yeah. He is just 40 years old. They might as well just say he's 40 years old, and he's trying to play a young man's game. So I do think if I'm a little worried about my Jets pick, it's because of that right there. It's because one hit in Aaron Rodgers right now, and all of a sudden this offense could really, really go in the tank.
Not only is he fragile, he's immobile. And we had Leger Douzable on Pushing the Pile yesterday morning, and he talked about advocating for starting Tyrod Taylor. And he honestly thinks that would give them a better chance to win because of his mobility. And we know how experienced Tyrod Taylor is and how many poor situations he's been thrust into. And it seems to me like every single time he gets wood on the baseball for his football team and gives them an opportunity to win. It would be interesting to see, but to your point, Aaron Rodgers, fragile. This group likes to get after the passer. That lack of mobility, it could spell disaster. So your pick for the Jets is starting to look a little shaky to me, Mike. It's looking shaky, bro.
I still like it. Let's hit real quick, though. Do the Bears have a bounce back week after the Hail Mary? Or do they go, or is the infighting that we saw and kind of the lack of accountability we saw? They're
going to need to. We will all find out a very, very great deal about the Chicago Bears roster, the men in that locker room, about how they go and respond against the Arizona Cardinals. It's going to be a tough game, but I think they have the guys in that room to get it done. Finger pointing concerns me, but it's about what you put on the field. You get an opportunity to get this taste out of our mouth this week.
Yeah, I think they end up taking that one against the Arizona Cardinals. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed your Halloween. We know we have so far, and hope you enjoyed Thursday Night Football. We'll be back on Monday with Matt Ryan. As always, until next time, keep pushing.